Can we agree that some rock stars are almost too tough for their own good? Because the musicians we're talking about today kept performing while seriously ill and pushing through battles most people never saw. And honestly, once you hear what these 10 artists endured just to stay on stage, their dedication feels unreal. Let's start with a legend, Ronnie James Dio. He has always felt like one of those performers who could stand on any stage and instantly own it. But what most fans didn't know was that during the 2009 Heaven and Hell tour, Dio was secretly fighting the earliest signs of stomach cancer.
I feel good and bad at times. You know, it's a long process. Chemotherapy I never realized what a difficult thing it was to go through.
He didn't announce anything, didn't slow down, didn't show a crack in his voice. When I look back at that footage, it's almost surreal to realize what he was carrying. You can actually see how much power he still pushed out every night, even when he must have felt something was very wrong. That final run of shows became a kind of unspoken farewell. Fans were cheering for a legend. They didn't realize they were watching the last chapter unfold in real time. And the incredible part is that Dio never let the illness define him. He kept singing like every crowd deserved his absolute best.
But I must keep my heart from my mind. The pleasure is to blame. Make no difference what you say.
Next up is Lemmy, because who else could follow Dio? It seems like he was built from steel and whiskey. But behind that image, the man was dealing with some brutal health problems. Diabetes, heart issues, lung problems. Name it, and he probably fought through it.
You're one of the best gigs in America, and I would love to play for you, but I can't. How old am I going to collapse or something?
What amazes me most is how Motorhead kept touring right up until 2015, literally weeks before Lemmy passed away. And if you watch the later concerts, he's visibly struggling but refuses to stop. There's a moment from the Wacken show where he tells the crowd he's not feeling very well, but still digs in and pushes through the set anyway. That's pure Lemmy. Honest, stubborn, and determined to keep playing until the wheels fell off. Fans knew something was wrong, but no one expected the end to come so fast. Even when his body was failing, he wanted to be on stage. That's where he believed he belonged, right until the end.
This is the last one now. I'll see you next time, alright? Don't forget us. We are Motorhead. We play rock and roll.
You know, we have to talk about Ozzy next. His story feels different because his struggles happened right in front of everyone. When the news broke about his Parkinson's type condition, fans wondered if he'd ever perform again.
I found out that I have a mild form of
It's Parkin 2, which is a form of Parkinson's.
Add in the spinal surgeries, nerve issues, and general frailty, and most people expected him to quietly step away. But that was never Ozzy. Every time you thought he was finished, he'd find a way back, moving slower, leaning on support, but still performing. And then came the Back to the Beginning concert in 2025, his unexpected final appearance. Watching him roll on stage just weeks before his death on July 22nd was emotional. You could see the effort it took, but also how much he wanted that connection one last time. He didn't hide the struggle. He pushed through it. In the end, Ozzy showed that being a rock icon isn't about strength. It's about heart.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really, thank you.
Well, I've been waiting for this moment all my life. Oh, Lord.
Phil Collins. His final performances remain one of the clearest examples of determination on this list. He lost the ability to drum and often struggled to walk without support, after major spinal surgeries damaged the nerves in his hands and legs. Most artists would have stepped away, but Phil chose to keep performing, especially during Genesis' final tour in 2022. Watching him sit in that chair front and center is emotional, because you can see how much effort each show demands. Yet when he starts singing, everything shifts. The voice is older, but the emotion carries more weight than ever. That vulnerability made those concerts feel especially meaningful. Fans weren't just watching a legend. They saw someone refusing to let physical limitations erase decades of work. Phil showed that performing isn't about flawless movement. It's about connection, honesty, and showing up even when it's difficult. For real. Now the next musician is another giant who refused to slow down. Tony Iommi. His story is a rare blend of resilience and quiet strength. When he was diagnosed with lymphoma around 2011, Black Sabbath were already deep into work on their comeback album, 13. Most musicians would have stepped back, but Tony kept writing, recording, and even performing while balancing chemotherapy treatments.
The news that you were in remission.
Well, you know, to me, it's never going to go away. It's always going to be there. So, according to my oncologist, the professor, he said, you know, he's probably going to come back.
Think about that. One of the architects of heavy metal was literally undergoing cancer treatment while still powering through massive riffs. During the later Sabbath tours, he had to manage his energy carefully, but you'd never know it from the way he played.
I have to sort of be careful and not stay up too late and get some rest, and wish I wasn't, you know, because we were traveling after the show.
Fans felt an extra weight to those shows, fully aware they were witnessing something special. Tony never framed himself as a victim. He simply adapted, fought through it, and delivered. To me, this highlights how much dedication it takes to keep performing, even when things aren't easy. Next up is Dave Mustaine, who has always had a fighter's personality. And that became crystal clear in 2019 when he announced that he had throat cancer. Most fans assumed Megadeth would pause for a long time, maybe years, but Mustaine went into treatment, beat the cancer, and got back on stage far sooner than anyone expected.
Well, I'm still a little mental, but as far as you know, the cancer, I'm 100% clean. And
watching his first shows after recovery is honestly emotional. You can hear a slightly different tone, but the intensity is absolutely there. And remember, this wasn't his only struggle. He's also dealt with degenerative spinal issues that would make performing physically punishing. Yet he still straps on the guitar, still commands the stage, and still shreds with something to prove. I love how open he's been about the fear and uncertainty he felt during treatment. It makes his comeback feel even more powerful. Mustaine resumed touring like someone who wasn't ready to let metal move on without him. Next up is someone whose resilience shocks me every time. Mick Mars. He might be one of the toughest musicians in rock history. Ankylosing spondylitis isn't just a bad back. It's a brutal, lifelong spinal disease that stiffens joints and causes constant pain. Imagine trying to tour with that, then imagine doing it for decades. That's Mick Mars.
But guitarist Mick Mars was undergoing troubles of his own. Mick had been quietly battling a degenerative bone disease called ankylosing spondylitis.
Whenever I rewatch later Motley Crue shows, I'm struck by how still he stands. Not because it looks cool, but because movement would be agony. Yet he never phoned in a performance. His tone stayed razor sharp, his timing solid, and his attitude pure rock and roll. Fans didn't always realize how much preparation and grit it took for him to get through a show.
Started way back when I was a kid, and I started noticing my hips were hurting.
Even after stepping away from the band, Mick kept writing and recording. His perseverance proves that sometimes the strongest musicians are the ones who push through pain anyway. Now, Eddie Van Halen was one of the most innovative guitarists ever. For years, fans noticed he'd disappear for stretches, only to return with that same explosive energy. What many didn't realize was that he was constantly battling recurring cancer. First his tongue, then his throat. And yet, he still pushed himself through major Van Halen reunion tours, even while undergoing treatments. If you watch footage from those later years, you can see how thin he became at times. But the moment he started playing, everything else vanished. What strikes me is that Eddie never let the illness become part of his public identity. He didn't talk about it and didn't lean on sympathy. He just kept showing up with a guitar and delivering the Eddie magic everyone came for. Those tours feel different now, almost like he was fighting for every note. Refusing to let cancer steal the thing he loved most, performing life. Chuck Berry performing into his late 80s almost doesn't seem real until you see the footage. Age had taken a heavy toll. He had hearing problems, memory lapses, and mobility issues. But he still walked onto that stage every month for his long-running residency in St. Louis. And the audiences weren't there out of pity. They came because even in a fragile state, Chuck could still light up a room with a single riff. What strikes me is the contrast. A man who practically invented rock and roll now pushing through severe physical decline just to keep connecting with fans. Some nights were rough. Some nights were surprisingly sharp. He kept going. Not because he needed the spotlight, but because performing was simply part of who he was. Those final shows weren't polished, but raw and strangely beautiful. Chuck Berry proved that passion can outlast youth, strength, and sometimes even the body itself.
Wow! Nadine! Is that you?
Neil Peart's situation is one of those stories that hits a little harder when you understand the details. Everybody knew he battled chronic tendinitis, but during Rush's 2015 R40 tour, it had become so severe that every performance demanded a painful level of effort. When you think about his drumming, his precision, speed, and absolute control, it's shocking to realize how much physical suffering was behind those final shows. Fans noticed he looked stiff and even uncomfortable, but he still delivered full demanding sets night after night. What most people didn't know at the time was that Peart was also dealing with deep long-term wear from years on the road. His later brain cancer diagnosis wasn't public, but it makes his final tour feel even more emotional in hindsight. Watching him push through those last performances now, you can see a musician giving everything he had left. He wasn't just finishing a tour, he was finishing a legacy. These musicians didn't just tour, they fought through pain, fear, and illness to stay connected to their fans. Their perseverance honestly blows me away. So tell me, which story hit you the hardest and why? Leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into rock history.